Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, the long-awaited sequel to capitalism speedrun Kingdom Come Deliverance 1, which I will be dropping a video on that soon, so be sure to subscribe and hit the bell. And I must say, I've been spending way too much of my time stealing every piece of smoked cheese in northern Bohemia, but after nearly 70 hours, I finally beat the game. There are many things that I do want to cover, but fair warning, I am going to be spoiling a lot of things in this game. I will do my best to avoid spoiling anything in the main story. I have a lot of B-roll I gotta get through, so I'll try to leave it out of context just so I don't give away too much. Anyway, how does all of this begin? Boom, it's 1402, swords are clashing, pillory lashing, and oh my lords and ladies, hand cannons are blasting. You step into the shoes of Henry of Skalitz, a man who's the orphan of a blacksmith, and the son of Sir Radzig. He has two dads. You've been tasked with the unenviable task of escorting Lord Capon to Trotsky in order to deliver a message to Lord von Berghoff. And much like anything that involves Henry or Hans, or God forbid both, things go tits up. You are penniless, lost, and worst of all, you have to do manual labor.
I can't work. Make it worse. What? You behave like a spoilt brat.
Now, I briefly went over the intro because I really don't want to spoil too much for you. Anyway, let's talk about the great things about this game. Performance. I did not have a single crash my entire time playing this game. It ran flawlessly. I had maybe one stutter my entire time playing it. I'm a little beat up about the fact that cutscenes are only 45 FPS, but I'm not going to complain. I actually thought it was 2015 because this is the first game in a while I've played that actually ran well on launch. Cinematics. They did a whole lot of mocap for these scenes and it shows they look great. And facial expressions are also very good as well. It kind of reminds me of Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines, which is a 21-year-old game at this point. The animations are really well done. They look great. They're fluid. They actually look natural. And on top of that, the voice acting is very, very good. There's actual personality to the people you're engaging with. And also, like, some of them are just hilarious. Kubienka and Hinek are some of my favorites.
Latin is tough when you're sober.
Also, the writing is really well done. There were some moments in game where I was genuinely laughing at what was going on, and there were a few moments that even tugged on the heartstrings a little bit. Apart from the main story, even the side quests and points of interest have fully fledged out scenes and were also just really well written. Like when I was helping a local village clear out a demon that had been killing their cattle. I stumbled upon this quest when I was trying to do the main mission. And yes, the juice was worth the squeeze. You learn about a knight that made a promise to the local priest that he would protect the area from demons and kind of went mad. You can even find these little notes lying around that the knight himself had scribbled on and just see how deep into insanity he descended as time went on. This is the type of side content that I want. Anyway, what are some other things that I can praise? Skills. For the most part, the skills actually stayed the same, but they did change a couple of them. There's no longer a bow skill, it's just marksmanship. Pickpocket, lockpicking, and stealth have all been roped into the thievery skill. And finally, the reading skill has been replaced with scholarship. Henry is a big boy now, and not only can he barely read Latin, he can speak fluent Cuman. They also added a polearm skill. They added some new perks and even changed a couple, so now it's not like you're getting a debuff while getting a buff. Combat is interesting. Now, I'm not crazy for coming out and saying that Kingdom Come Deliverance 2's combat is way better than the first game. In the first game, having to fight more than 2 people was practically a death sentence, and if you didn't learn Master Strike right after the intro of the game, you were practically crippling yourself for the rest of the playthrough, and even soft-locking you in key game parts. That happened to me on my first playthrough. Overall, the combat has been vastly improved, and I've only heard a couple complaints from a friend. Long swords and short swords are completely broken. Master Strikes are very overpowered. This is interesting because there is some truth to it. Swords are crazy good. They just are. I got to a point in the game where I was quite literally destroying people in 3 to 4 hits, sometimes even 2. But with the Master Strike, I really don't think it's that broken. In the first game, a Master Strike was just a button press to a free kill, while in this game, you still have to time it properly, but it does give you a really cool animation when you pull it off. And to be honest, I'm kind of mid at the combat in this game. I was even worse in the first game. I would usually just use the crossbow before I even got in the fight. Speaking of that, ranged weapons are so much fun to use now. Gone are the days of using a lumberous bow. Everything's a bit more fluid and a bit faster. And when I got my hands on a crossbow, that thing never left my side. Immersion. Every person has a routine that they will follow almost every day. If someone's a commoner or a peasant with a home, they'll eat with their family and then they'll go to work. You can walk up to local inns and taverns and see people arguing outside and even get into fights and get yourself involved in them. Now, there are so many cool details I would love to discuss further, but this video is starting to look like Diddy's bathroom floor from all the glazing, so why don't we talk about some of the negatives? This isn't really a performance issue, it's more of like a graphical issue. There's this weird flickering that happens sometimes when you're outside a city, especially after it rains. It's pretty noticeable. And much like Kingdom Come Deliverance 1, KCD2 does have the same texture streaming issues that the first game did, although it's not as prevalent, but when it is there, it is very noticeable. Despite the fact I had almost zero performance issues, I did have a few bugs, and one of those bugs was at a key point in the game. After rescuing Hans from a fortress, we were just supposed to ride off, and for some reason, it was just me there. He was still at the fort, and I couldn't enter. And when I reloaded that save, it just automatically failed me. I had to go back 2 whole saves and replay this whole segment just to fix this problem. That was one of the moments that almost made me want to stop playing. Gameplay. Stealth is kind of a mixed bag. On one hand, it's very powerful and you can pretty much walk within arm's reach of someone and they probably won't notice you in the dark. On the other hand though, trying to distract someone or kill them or knock them out is very finicky. I basically have to throw a rock within 2 feet of someone if I even want to have a chance of distracting them. And honestly, it just feels like RNG at this point when it comes to stealth takedowns. I've had moments where I've taken down some very heavily armored guys, and then I've had moments where someone was sitting down or asleep and they quite literally just rose from the dead like The Undertaker. Activities. There are a lot of things in KCD2 that you can do. You can hunt, play some Farkle with the boys, do archery tournaments, do duels, visit the bathhouse wenches. But Warhorse, please explain to me why my beautiful boy Henry cannot get a low taper fade. There is literally a barber right here, yet I cannot get a haircut. Why is this in the first game but not the second game? Please add this. We're kind of veering off the bad stuff, but I'll get back to it in a second. I do want to talk about how cool the side content is and how you find out about it. You can just go to the innkeeper and get the local scoop on what's happening, and he doesn't give you quests, he just gives you points of interest. From a flipped cart to a witch's hut, or some of the best armor in the game. Yes, this is something you can do in the beginning of the game right after the intro, and I must say, I don't really like it. There's a riddle you have to solve where you can find some of the best armor in the game. It is essentially early endgame armor. It really didn't affect me that much because by the time I found it, I already had some of the best armor I could get my hands on, and I stumbled upon one of the sites accidentally and just decided to solve the whole thing. Alright, back to the bad things. Combat. Though there have been a lot of vastly improved skills and even combos for a lot of these new weapon types, unfortunately, your angle of attack is reduced. I barely used any other melee weapon besides the sword. The only other thing I used was a halberd, and that was just for mission objectives. And to be honest, I understand why people think swords are busted, and I agree with it. Now, if you haven't fallen asleep at your computer or at the wheel, you've probably noticed that I've made a lot of comparisons to Kingdom Come Deliverance 1 in terms of its improvements and its faults. Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 is a drastically improved sequel to the first game, in almost every single way. And this game should be a wake-up call to every studio and publisher in the industry right now. This game only had a $41 million budget, and they gave us one of the best RPGs of the year. And yet studios, with 10 times the budget and twice the time to make it, can't even make a game with the level of immersion and detail and performance on launch that Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 has. Overall, I think Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 is a great game to start 2025 off with, and hot take, I genuinely believe this game is going to be a Game of the Year nominee, and at the very least, be nominated for a few awards. And yes, you should absolutely play it. But the real question is, should you play Kingdom Come Deliverance 1? Well, be sure to subscribe and hit that bell and you'll find out in my next video. Anyway, thank you all so much for watching. If you want to help support the channel, be sure to join my Patreon right here. And if you just want to come hang out, join my Discord. Anyway, I'll see you all in the next video.